Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to yet another episode of 20 Somethings. I'm Jenna, and I'm here with Lee, Chris, Nate, and Natalie, and Keith. And today we have some topics for you. They're not as pressing as the other group's topics, but there's still something to get us talking. So something that I had just recently found out about from my lovely group members is this Netflix documentary, Seaspiracy. Anyone wants to take that away? Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so basically, oh, sorry, I'm laggy. You go right ahead, Natalie. I have things to add later.
Okay. So it's a documentary that was put out about how we are exploiting our ocean's resources and exhausting fish stocks, and it's a crazy sort of realization that is becoming more public about how we are running out of time when it comes to taking care of our ocean. It's one of our biggest resources. And yeah, that's a quick overview of the documentary. Lee, if you want to come in with your details.
Yeah, so I thought like one of the most like pertinent parts of the documentary that like stood out to me was like the whaling and like dolphin, almost like it's like hunting in Japan. The primary reason that they're like hunting these dolphins is for the entertainment industry there, but the dolphins that they catch they don't use for the entertainment industry, like places like SeaWorld, they just have been killing them. And so it says that this one place, I'm pretty sure out of Taiji in Japan, is responsible for like thousands of whale and dolphin deaths, and there are over like 300,000 every year due to like this specific like industry of like whaling and dolphin hunting, which is like really sad. I am vegetarian, like I just love the ocean a lot, and so watching this documentary definitely made me realize like how corrupt some of like these big industries are, especially industries that like we're all familiar with. I don't know, I think a lot of times people think, oh well, it's probably more ethical to eat fish in comparison with like factory farmed meats and things like that, but in reality the fishing industry is also very corrupt. And a lot of these big fish companies are responsible for like severely diminishing like large populations of fish in the ocean. I think like this specific kind of tuna, I think it's blue Pacific tuna, has gone into almost extinction. There's only like 3% left, and they try to like stay closer to like lower parts of the ocean so they don't get like overfished. But it's just crazy. This documentary airs kind of all of that.
That's a really good point you made about like you being vegetarians. I know a lot of vegetarians who they'll eat fish, but they won't eat meat. And it's one thing that's for like religious or like health reasons, but like it really opens your eyes to see that these like fish are not being like found humanely or anything like that. It's kind of sometimes even worse than like the meat industry. And I didn't really know about that until like this documentary.
Yeah, one of the industries that's bad is shark hunting too. They'll hunt the sharks and then cut off the fins, and they'll literally just make it into soup. On one documentary, I don't think it was this one, but there was another one that I watched.
Yeah, they talk about that too, and it's crazy because shark fin soup is literally just used for status. Like people who eat it in different countries in Asia, like it's a status thing, but it has no nutritional value. And so it's just very interesting to think of something like as a delicacy when it's like not really benefiting you in any way. I just think it's like so sad. So I would definitely encourage people to watch this documentary. But
people do anything for money and status, and it's really eye-opening to see that.
Yeah, I think it's really incredible how much capitalism can take over our lives, because when you think about how big the ocean is and how much of the world it covers, it gets hit the hardest with ecological degradation when you're talking about especially climate change, and that is our world's biggest resource, and people are just sweeping it under the rug. They don't care because they can't exactly see it, and money definitely means more to industries rather than the longevity of their businesses. And I think that's really crazy to think about.
Money makes the world go around, and it's sad to say
Very
that.
true. Unfortunately. There was like a really crazy part of the documentary. I'm like obsessed with it. I don't know why. But I think it's because it's done in like a almost like guerrilla filmmaking style where like it's this guy and his partner and they just go and they like find out all this stuff and they tried to interview, I think it was Mitsubishi. Could not speak just then, sorry. And they had to like blur their faces out, and as soon as they asked them why their industry was contributing to like the death of like all these animals that like weren't related to like their company, they were like, you can turn off your cameras and leave, like we make comments, we don't do interviews, we don't do any interviews, like you need to leave. And it's like, obviously if people are going to get that defensive that quickly, that wasn't like the only kind of case like that within the documentary. Like there are so many companies that are like using all these resources that like they don't need to in order to like make a profit. So you're right, Natalie, it does all go back to capitalism, which is really unfortunate.
Definitely. I feel like that's being seen in so many different ways, how capitalism is just kind of taking over. And speaking of that, college sports aren't typically funded by like viewers. I mean, in some senses they are, but like if you're a D1 athlete, you're going to the school on a scholarship most of the time. And in the Women's March Madness tournament, we're seeing that women are not being treated as equal as the men's teams. No one really knew about this until this player on the women's basketball team for Oregon State. She made a TikTok showcasing the women's weight room versus the men's weight room. The women literally had yoga mats and a rack of dumbbells, and the men had all that and much more. People were trying to say, oh, it's a space thing. Like they just didn't have the same amount of space. And she made another TikTok showing that they literally had like the same amount of room, if not more. And that's literally all they gave them. And no one was saying anything about this until she exposed it on TikTok.
Why can't they use the same weight room? Just use it at different times.
I guess like COVID. Because they're not competing. Like women are competing against women. I guess they have like.
They could definitely like write down everything, I would think.
Yeah. Everyone uses COVID as an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably one of the worst things about this is not the fact that it happened, but the NCAA hasn't really come out and like taken the blame for it. They've kind of just continually made excuses, and they really should just have come out and just said, yeah, we really messed up, and just fixed it.
Because the thing is, didn't say anything. It's like that's the part that's like a little suspect. You're like, okay, well, it shouldn't have taken like this girl to say something for y'all to realize that these college athletes should be treated the same.
And it wasn't even just the weight room. Like, there was one, like I saw a photo, I think it was like Instagram or something, the merch that the women's teams were given versus the men's teams. And like, yeah, sure, the men's teams might bring in more viewers, but it's the NCAA, like supposed to treat people equally, like regardless of gender. Like the men's team were getting like backpacks, sneakers, like tons of things. The women's team literally got like a towel and a t-shirt.
Yeah, I also saw that the men's teams were given like substantially like better food, like they were given like whole like buffet style layouts, while women's teams were just given like boxes with like a little sandwich that looked like it was like bought at a gas station or something.
Yeah, women's team looked like they were living in like the URI quarantine from the food they were getting. They were just getting like trays of like nasty looking food. Like these are college athletes. It's not like a little girl riding her bicycle down the street. She needs a lot of energy. Like they're competing for like a big title. They all need to be able to work, train their muscles as they normally do. A dumbbell isn't going to allow them to do that, and they need to be nourished.
I think the worst part of this whole scandal or trend is the underlying sexism. They are disregarding these athletes because they're female. They are not putting as much effort into taking care of them nutritionally when it comes to access to equipment and stuff like that. And when you think about how far society has come in terms of gender equality, this just highlights so many of the areas where we still need work and progress needs to be done. And it's just far from over, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And it's disappointing to see that so many like organizations like the NCAA show time and time and again that it doesn't care about its players, it only cares about money.
They should really take a stand and maybe like boycott some of the games, because then the NCAA will lose money. That's a big part of their revenue, and that's the only way that change will happen, probably.
And it's sad to see that the NCAA is so like money oriented, because a huge thing for college athletes is like you cannot have a sponsorship from anyone. If you're like a D1 athlete, you cannot post certain things on social media. You're literally like their employee, and they treat them like this. It's ridiculous.
And they don't get paid.
Exactly. Well, I mean, they get free college, so that's a different story.
Conference. Oh, sorry, I think I'm laggy. Am I laggy now?
No, you're good.
Sorry. I know that the A10 conference is coming up. And I live with all volleyball players, so we were talking about it the other day, and we're wondering, like, they have specific plans for their A10s, and they're kind of like kept in this bubble when they go to that specific conference. But we're wondering if, because of this, they had original plans and they've changed them since the NCAA was like called out. So we're just wondering, like, what other kind of like college conferences and like companies and things like that are changing because of this, not at the goodness of their hearts, but because they also fear being called out now, you know?
Yeah, no one wants to make change until they're called out, and it was proven with that. Like, no, I guess people were posting things beforehand, but until that TikTok blew up, like, they did not make any changes whatsoever. And then suddenly overnight, they gave them a full weight room. Like, where did you manage to pull that many weights from? Clearly, like, you have the
resources.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's another huge part of the problem. It's not that they weren't able to give them the equal opportunity. They had all the resources, they had all the equipment. It was what they wanted to offer and what they saw fit for these athletes. And I think underestimating them like that and underestimating what they need is disgusting, especially to see how quickly they changed their tune and readjusted the accommodations. It's
Exactly. It
frustrating.
all definitely boils down to underlying sexism. People try to claim that, oh, the women's teams aren't bringing in as much, period. Put some respect on women's sports. They're trying to claim that the women's teams don't bring in as much viewers or revenue, but that's because no one respects women's sports. They think it's a game, because it's not. But it's because we're women, and women belong in the kitchen.
Ouch.
So no, I like to see those women on a basketball court.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of kitchens, these transitions are awful. Who likes Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Not anymore.
It's I.
I don't know how, like, does General Mills now make shrimp? Because this man was opening up his family-sized box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch from Costco, and he found 2 shrimp tails in it. That's the picture. Those are clearly shrimp tails. It's kind of cropped, but it was in the bottom of the picture on the right too. And there's also like a string. It's like either string or dental floss, something. So he posted these pictures on Twitter, and he like added General Mills, and they were like, "Oh, just send us a DM and we'll see about that." And he kept blowing it up because they wanted him to send the whole box. And he was like, no, like, you're not taking this. You're just going to throw it out. And they were trying to say that it's clumps of brown sugar or cinnamon sugar, but that those were clearly shrimp tails. And yes, maybe he did put them in there. But, like, why would they do that? And apparently, a few years ago, there was another claim, like something similar regarding shrimp and something that General Mills made. I didn't know that they had a shellfish line all of a sudden, but I don't know.
It's that Seaspiracy stuff we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's bycatch from the cinnamon. When they go cinnamon fishing, obviously they're bringing in lots of shrimp bycatch. Disgusting. if you're gonna buy a product, I feel like you, as a consumer, so I will no longer be purchased. I don't purchase Cinnamon Toast Crunch a lot, but I'm gonna stick with my Fruit Loops, and we'll just hang out over here. Personally,
like, it's not only the fact that it's something gross. It's like, how did it get in there? Was someone eating their lunch over the production line and it just popped in there?
Listen to this. He found multiple things in there, like a piece of string and like a pea that was like covered in sugar. So they think that it was a rat infestation, and that rats were going through the production line and just throwing things in there and then pooping in the cereal. That's what
because I also saw that he posted pictures. There were little black marks on the like actual pieces of cereal. So he brought them to a private lab to get tested to see what it was. I don't know if the test results ever came back, but like besides if it is a rat infestation, that's absolutely disgusting. I don't want to eat any General Mills products, but what if someone has shellfish allergy? Like, you wouldn't think that your cereal would be cross-contaminated with shellfish. Like,
exactly.
That's a huge safety hazard.
Amanda says there was apparently rat poop and other random objects in the bags. There was speculation that a rat had gotten in the bag and made its home in there.
That's gross.
Y'all don't like rat droppings in your cereal? Crazy.
I mean, extra protein.
Delish.
I think it's a bit different than when you get ziti mixed in with your spaghetti.
It's
I
like when you add
remember
sugar to your pasta sauce. Little extra surprise.
I remember when it happened. I saw it on Twitter and I thought it was very funny. And I kept going on Twitter throughout the day to follow it. And but the one thing that like really stuck out to me was how terribly General Mills handled it. And like it seemed like they're just trying to like sweep it under the rug, and they didn't actually care. And
they tried to cover it up because they knew it was not sugar. That does not.
And they were just like not responding to him. They were like, "Oh, we'll have FedEx come pick it up," but like then they never responded to him. Like when he like tried to give him his address or something.
But then once it started to gain traction on Twitter, that's when they released a statement, and that's when they went to him and said, "Listen, we're going to need you to send this box back so we can make sure that this doesn't happen again." And he's like, "No, I'm not sending you a box. You tried to tell me this was sugar."
Yeah, like you're clearly just going to try to give me my $5 back that I spent on the box of cereal and call it a day. I think something that's really funny that came out of this is the guy who posted this is actually married to the actress who played Topanga in Boy Meets World, which is just kind of like a weird fun fact. Like, maybe that's why he already had the following on Twitter that made it gain so much traction. But like, I don't know. I'm a big Boy Meets World fan. I think that's kind of cool.
Me too. I binged this
shrimp meets cereal.
Shrimp meets cereal. Boy Meets World. C meets capitalism. And what else? That's kind of all there was.
NCAA meets sexism, but that's not new.
That's kind of always been there, sadly. Well, that's about it for today, folks. Thank you for joining us. This is The Crew. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye.